Hello and welcome to a new South Texas Pride Q&A. I'm Ivan Herrera, and today I'm joined by Johnny Ingram and Stephen Warren, co-creators and executive producers of the show We're Here, which is on HBO and is an Emmy-nominated show. Welcome, guys.
Thank you for having us.
Johnny, Stephen, excuse me?
We're excited to talk.
Oh, yes. I'm excited to talk to you because I just watched one of your episodes and I'm really excited to just break down a little bit more. But first, I'm going to ask you a little bit about the show. Can you tell me a little bit about it? Can you tell me what brought about this concept of We're Here and the representatives that you chose to be on your show, like the participants and the drag queens?
Well, this is something that's near and dear to our hearts in a way that we can't even describe, and that Johnny and I originally came up with the concept and we created the show almost 3 years ago when we were on a vacation in Mexico. It was raining a lot, so we were watching more TV than usual. We were watching RuPaul Drag Race All Stars. And then we were thinking, really enjoying it, and said, we love this, but we both come from political backgrounds as well as, our professional backgrounds. And that we thought, what would happen if we took drag, put it in small towns? What would the reaction be? And that from there, we knew we had something special. And then so Johnny and I just started talking. We realized we came up with the whole format of the show and what we wanted. We even knew the 3 drag queens we wanted. And then a week and a half later, I wound up having lunch with the head of HBO. And I didn't even think I was going to pitch it to him because it's not something, unscripted stuff isn't usually what HBO does. But I just told him, and he goes, we want it. There's a woman in New York who's always wanted to do something like this, who's the head of our unscripted. And that was it.
That sounds like a really cool story. And I'm really excited to know why choose small towns over New York or LA, which is where usually, these reality shows are filmed.
Well, I'm from a small town in eastern Tennessee. I'm not far from where Eureka was born and raised. I like to say Dollywood, from Dollywood, but now live in Hollywood. So having, that insight and experience of living in both, I've lived in many large cities. I know Stephen has been in Los Angeles for many years, but is born and raised in Rochester, New York. You really bring a lot of experience with what it's like to live as a queer person in a small conservative town. And when you look around, you don't often see a reflection of yourself, and the community tends to force you to not really celebrate your individuality or your sexuality or even talk about it openly. So it makes it really hard to not only exist but to feel comfortable in your own community. So I think that was really what we wanted to bring was this thriving experience of what's happening in large cities like Los Angeles, New York, and Chicago, and these thriving queer communities, and bring that energy, that spectacle, and with RuPaul and the elevation of this phenomenon of drag culture sort of now is pop culture, and bringing that back to these places that don't necessarily have the resources or like I said, the reflection of a queer community or a strong queer community, to see what would happen. And I think we wanted to ignite those conversations that haven't happened for many years. To for some reason drag really opens up those doors to conversations, and because it's so fun and celebratory and awesome and a spectacle, and love it or hate it, it does get people talking.
Definitely. And the show is definitely a talker. I was talking to one of the subjects in the show, Mayor Bruno Lozano, and he was over the moon. And I think that there's just the concept and just the stories that you guys are telling are some that may never be told unless somebody tells them. So I just think that's a really cool concept that you guys have come up with. So you're now in season 2 over here. How is it different from season 1? What are some lessons learned?
Season 1 was an experience of a lifetime, as is season 2, but we really sort of made up a little bit as we went along, especially in Gettysburg, our first episode. And then we were thrilled with the response to the show, and we realized what people truly cared about. So for this season, if you notice, what will happen is, number one, the three drag queens have bonded together as a unit in a way, as a family, in a way that it takes time to do, so that it's a natural thing that happened. And I think you feel more cohesiveness and love there. And then second, we were very careful about choosing places and people with certain themes involved. So like our first episode of the season was Spartanburg. We went back to redo, to recapture and finish the episode. We couldn't. But then the second episode that we aired this season was Temecula, and the theme there was the influence and the importance of mothers in people's lives. This third episode in Del Rio was obviously to showcase the Tejano and Latino culture in a way that I've never seen on television before. And we wanted that specifically, a border town with three people that could really, connect to the world. And then you'll see as it goes along, next week's episode is in Selma, and I'm not spoiling anything, but sorry about that. But we wound up, it's such a powerful episode, because that is a theme of, we have a Black trans woman who is phenomenal, and all three people that we tell the stories of are telling the story of Selma and of their own selves. So it's a beautiful integrated episode, and it goes along for the rest of the season where we have themes.
Thank you for sharing that. And I wanted to talk a little bit more about Del Rio, which you just said aired this week. Can you tell me more about the episode and any successes or challenges that you guys may have had with it?
Well, I mean, to build off of what Stephen just said, I mean, what we haven't actually made is an entire season without COVID. And this season, and relearning how, not only learning from our first season how to create a show, but it's then also relearning how to create a show in this whole new world, as we all are learning together how to navigate it in our own ways. And what was so joyous in Del Rio was it was in a time when vaccines were widely available. We were able to, mask mandates were a little looser, so we were actually able to, for the first time this season, in the second season of shooting, to be outside, albeit it was 110 degrees during that drag show, but we were outside open, and it was fun. And it was also Pride Month, which was just that intersection of bringing this show to town and it being Pride Month. People were ready for us, and it was just really, really extraordinary. So, I mean, I know it's not necessarily a challenge, but the challenges before getting to Del Rio really allowed us, when we arrived to Del Rio, to you could see it in this particular episode, just how joyful and exciting it is. Yes, there are three very different stories, and two coming out stories. What I thought was really interesting is you see, Isael, who is a young gay man coming out to his parents, and not that it wasn't easy. He definitely is struggling with his own identity, and worried about how his parents would accept him. And then you have Joey, who is struggling with their gender identity and gender expression, and now
Estella.
And now Estella has really showed how difficult it is for her parents to really understand what this gender expression and gender identity is. And then when Estella comes out as trans at the end of the episode, and just understanding that journey is a lot longer. We've paved the way for people understanding what it's like to be gay, but we really have a long road ahead to help others understand what it's like to be trans.
Yeah, definitely. I was really moved by those stories, and I identify with with a little bit of it. And I just as the South Texas aspect of it really brought everything to life for me. I don't want to spoil anything, but just the performances were really great. So I loved it. So
Great.
We're Here was nominated for an Emmy last year and also won a GLAAD Media Award this year. What does that recognition mean to you in regards to this show and the people that it features?
First of all, it's mind blowing for both Johnny and I to think that, this is something that we care so much about. And we've put so much of our souls and hearts and thought into, and that to be nominated for an Emmy, we were like, holy cow, we can't believe this happened. And then to win the GLAAD Media Award is very, very important and significant for us. Number one, I was the co-chair of GLAAD for several years. I'm not on the board of GLAAD any longer, but it felt almost like a homecoming that to be recognized by the group of people that I was one of the leaders of for that period of time was very, very important. And Johnny himself had done work for GLAAD in the past as well. But I think the recognition is really important for this show because the recognition, what we care about is we want people to make connections that they would never otherwise think they could make, and hopefully change on a micro level their personal lives, and in their towns and in their cities, and on a more macro level to have people realize that the stories that are being told are real life. These are real people, and that when you are taking away rights of trans people to participate in sports or to use a bathroom, or when you are calling your gay son a fag, that is hurtful. That has consequences. And when you get to see it, and it's on this larger level, and the recognition that we've been receiving, I think brings us a hopefully larger audience, and that in turn, we can make the world a little better place.
Yeah, and I think we share those nominations and awards with our drag kids in these communities because what we come into town often. I say we're fighting a war of words online in these communities. Even when we splash into town, yes, we get people talking. It's not always good, but at least people are starting a dialogue and acknowledging that we exist and being visible, and the importance of visibility is moving the needle. But having not only these awards show that the community that these stories matter, these people matter, and more importantly, hopefully, after passing so much judgment about what drag is and what our queer community is and what a thriving queer community can be when they watch the show, because everyone's a little nosy. We know how small towns work, being from one, that they're just actually moved by those stories, and then they see that maybe I just misunderstood and passed judgment before I really understood what this community is, and I see now right here, not only in Del Rio, Texas, there is not only a gay mayor, but just a thriving LGBTQ community because we are stronger in numbers.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And where do you visualize this show going next? Do you foresee a season 3 or season 4? Where do you want the show to go next?
We would love the show to last as long as humanly possible. I mean, because there are unlimited numbers of stories that can be told, that should be told, and that need to be told, and that we're not going to rest until we can tell them all. We would love, there are so many different places within this country that, from Maine to Alaska to, Florida to, all over that, we would love to explore. And at the same time, ideally, we'd love to take this internationally. We'd love to see, what we can do there, because homophobia is obviously not restricted to the United States. And what Johnny and I have found is we'll get messages, and we'll see on Twitter from people in countries all around the world that are watching this, that are so appreciative, and that I would love, the same way that you are so, partial to this episode because you grew up in South Texas, I would love for people in the Philippines, if there was a Philippine version, or if there's, that you say, oh my goodness, I really can connect with this, and that it, hopefully, advances the dialogue there.
Yeah, I mean, it's big and small. I mean, except from big cities, we're bringing to small towns, but these small town stories are now, on this platform like HBO, which we're so lucky to be on, able to tell these stories to, in such a wide reach in places that, where it may be, more oppressed to be a member of the LGBT community. So we really, we're like to tell a lot of more localized stories within the U.S., but expanding that idea, and what we're here really means is we're everywhere. So I think that has a lot of legs, and as individuals, and talking specifically this season about intersectionality, and not only am I queer, but I'm also I'm Black, and I'm living as a trans woman in the South, and we're also battling voting rights within this country. So there's all these just interesting layers to these stories that we want to find them, and hopefully share them so that other people can really see not only the struggles, but also the celebrate the beauty of people's individuality.
Thank you so much for sharing that. And I'm actually really excited to see how the rest of the season goes. Is there anything else that you guys would like to add? And also, where can people find the show, or when does it air? And just give me a little bit of information about that.
It airs every Monday night, new episodes on HBO, on whatever
And
time.
HBO Max.
Yes, and it's always on HBO Max, and it's also on Hulu. If you have HBO, you can watch it on Hulu. And that you can catch up on the entire first season as well by going on to HBO Max. There's 6 wonderful episodes there. We have 8 episodes for this season. I think, to leave you, we just want to say Del Rio was really special to us. I mean, it was special in so many different ways, that the people were so welcoming. The parents of each of the drag kids that we showcased were so special. And that, Johnny and I talked last night to Bruno, SIL, and Stella, and, I will tear up thinking about this now, but like Stella, called and was crying, just saying how important this was for her life, and that how her parents are so appreciative of what our production did to bring the production to their lives. And, and that I know that they are going to be, real instruments of change, in their own community. And, we love Del Rio.
Especially in Texas right now, which I think is in the forefront of undoing a lot of our hard work, especially within the LGBT community. It's important to acknowledge the Equality Act that we really want to get passed, and through government, to make sure we ensure safe places for all queer people across the entire country. I think Texas specifically isn't is sort of taking a few steps back, but I know that together, if we all focus around the country, all of us unite to help support all the people in Texas that are that love their communities and love living in Texas, that we got your back, and we're going to try to make this country a much better place for queer people.
Johnny, Stephen, thank you so much for joining me for this South Texas Pride. Those are all the questions I have for you. And good luck with the rest of the show. I hope it goes really well, and I can't wait to see the rest of the season.
Well, let us know what you think.
Thank you for watching.